Yeah, so I wanted to share with you, with the viewers on kind of like my journey using 3D and making an evolution into Gravity Sketch, where I've really wanted to fuse and keep myself grounded in the traditional, conventional design, apparel design methodologies from sketching, communicating, draping, pattern making. And the cool thing that I found with Gravity Sketch is it's allowed me to really stay connected to the roots and the traditions of apparel design, and letting technology um, actually amplify um, the design experience, the way I communicate and excite around concepts. So I'm just going to get right into it and kind of give you just a little bit of a tidbit on my journey up front, and kind of to how I'm using technology and Gravity Sketch in my current day design. So I'm going to share screen. So how I started is I've been designing for about 25 years in the apparel industry, and with half of my career in streetwear and fashion, and the other half in sport performance and technical garments. And like all of us, or a lot of us who started in this apparel industry around my age, I've been pretty lucky to see the evolution of the tools used to design and create apparel products, where it was pen, paper, marker, gouache, and we made some pretty cool leaps into 2D digital with Photoshop and Illustrator. And the cool thing now is we're just getting into the beginnings, the cusp of exploring 3D garment drawing and rendering. So I got my bachelor's in fashion design from Parsons School of Design. I did 2 years in New York City and 1 year in studying European design in Paris. And at both locations, we studied the traditional, like I mentioned, the traditional draping, pattern making, fashion illustration. And back then, we didn't have any technology. My first job out of school was on 7th Avenue, where I was doing a ton of hand drawing. And the company was using my hand sketches for selling and merchandising tools. And yeah, that's it. And it wasn't until my second job where I was introduced to like Illustrator 7 or something like that, and then also Photoshop. And back then, my coworkers and I pretty much played around, taught ourselves, sharing techniques and new discoveries in the programs. And then this was when I was really getting excited about showing more dimension and shadowing and techniques and illustrating more complicated textures. I bought all the books and the vector images, if you guys remember, back in the day, from people posing to decorative line art. And I used it all trying to push the way I designed by the way of illustrating more detail and creating higher contrasting highs and lows of shadowing and shape and silhouette. And this is where in Photoshop, as you see here in this slide, the dodge and burn tools became my best friend. Another game changer, technology game changer for me was when I bought my first scanner. And that opened me up to a whole new dimension for my drawings. And now I can scan off textures of clothing I have in my closet to fabrics I bought off of 7th Avenue. By seeing volume and highlights in my illustrations simply by digitally scrubbing and rubbing with the dodge and burn tools, to bringing out actual material textures onto the silhouettes, I was absolutely hooked and believe that the technology is going to help us designers create product concepts clear, faster, and with more impact. Fast forward a few years of working in Photoshop and Illustrator, I was still doing a lot of hand drawing. And by then, I wanted to draw faster, better, and with improved consistency. So then I started scanning fashion models that were photographed in interesting poses or proportions. And then I created my own wireframes in Illustrator to create guidelines for me to draw my own designs around. And this was the beginning to my personal interest and today's my own guiding principle of tradition in technology. And fast forward to 2017, the tools that we used in fashion design and apparel creation at that time still really haven't evolved in 20 years. I had an opportunity to learn from a great guy who had a lot of patience with me to train me in Clo 3D. And after spending a good amount of time getting upskilled, I was running full bore with using the tool to help launch new product categories and purely concepting new ideas in 3D at the start of the season. And showing up in the ideation phase of the design season up front with 3D images really threw off my design leaders in a way because it felt so polished and finalized. I kept utilizing the tool because I knew that it was already helping me convey the design intent much more clearly. And I noticed that I was getting faster and clear feedback on the designs I was presenting. And as time went by, my explorations got more complex through the patterning, and the current 3D tool I was using allowed me to see movements in the product before the garment really existed in my hands physically. So that was really cool back then. And through my new journey with my first 3D apparel design tool, I always challenged myself to upskill in my hand drawing. So just like I did with Illustrator to build myself custom made hand drawing wire templates, I did the same thing with Clothes 3D because I can now pose the avatars any which way I want and lower the opacity, and bam, I have my own customized set of ghosted out mannequins I can draw my own designs over. And that was just another example utilizing technology so I can upscale my traditional or conventional explorations in hand drawing. At my previous company, I was handed an Oculus headset when I started in their innovation business unit. I was already jazzed by the pure fact I got a VR headset to use for my job. My boss at the time said I'll be learning a new tool called Gravity Sketch. And before then, I'd never heard of that application before. Through numerous YouTubing and late night playing around and exploring the internal tutorials, I learned to use the tool enough where I felt confident to start sharing concepts with my team. The freaking cool thing was at this time I could truly walk around and under my garments as if they were hung on a dress form or something. And this was the thing I was looking for, to walk around my sketch or figuratively put the drawing on my desktop, like on my desk, to spin it around was sick. And I decided to use Gravity Sketch on my first big project designing NCAA uniform concepts. Just like a general contractor would be building structures, I use different tools, including hand drawing, Illustrator, Clo 3D, and Gravity Sketch. And I think I did a fair amount of ideation, sketching using all four tools. What I was discovering was that Gravity Sketch was showing me a nice balance of creating 3D images and physically moving around, drawing it, like moving, like my arms and bending over and looking down underneath a gusset, for instance. So that was another really cool unlock. The fact that I can draw a garment or an outfit and then walk around it in real time and actual size in mixed reality was a total unlock, too. It was like true instant gratification to see the drawing in full 3D. It was amazing. And once I started feeling comfortable with Gravity Sketch, it was becoming more like a 3D illustrator because I was clicking and dragging around now around a three-dimensional mannequin. Drawing material draping characteristics was my next challenge in this tool. And after obsessing about it late night and after putting my kids down to sleep, I drew this little schematic. And I still teach, this is how I teach this now, draping and folds in the surfacing. What it is alternating the edges of the topography in a manner that it's fanning out from the origin of the highest or lowest point of the body and then drawing it in the correct directions, the folds in the correct directions that emulate accurate drape and folds. With this digital draping principle, I learned that we can keep it simple or get as detailed and complicated as we needed, depending on the fabric that we wanted to design into. So a whole new world opened up for me, and I saw a whole bunch of new possibilities in designing and delivering apparel concepts that don't even exist yet with this new tool. And still, my number one instrument is pen and paper. The cool thing now is that I can make a whole bunch of sketches and bring them directly into GS and start drawing them digitally, all in 3D, as a new way to confirm if an idea, shape, ergonomic is working out or not. The visualization of the ideas became clearer and clearer the more I kept practicing hand drawing to gravity sketch. I do use Gravity Sketch alone as well to get a lot of the ideas out fast by drawing in wireframes, as you see here. And I pump these out big time from iterating on small details, for instance, like side seam shapes, to larger concepts of new pattern making geometries and potential mobility solutions. And just like what I did with Illustrator and Clo 3D to make full body custom drawing templates, I used Gravity Sketch to help me craft unconventional perspectives of drawing waistbands, collars, hood silhouettes, and hem shapes to trace over in Illustrator to help me make construction schematics outside of the typical straight on front, side, or back views. And this became another cool unlock. Oh, I think I've mixed up. Sorry. This became another cool unlock for me, drawing with these new perspectives. And this helped me draw them rather easily, quickly, and especially accurately. I really started digging some of the special movement mechanics, such as the smart move function in the tool that allowed me to copy and paste along either the horizontal or vertical axes and just push a drawing down the path, clearing the way to make for the next iteration. The smart move was one of the physical functionalities that really brought back the fun in designing in the digital space because I could be designing standing up, sitting down, moving my arms instead of sitting at a desk and pushing a mouse around. And that truly gave me back the joy of designing apparel in the computer. It really started making me feel like I was really physically making something again. Because when I was finished with the concept, I could literally walk around and underneath the garment in full size. No other tool has given me that sense of instant gratification. So I'm not going to go a lot into detail on how we fill in the wireframes here, but one of the main methods also allow me to export the assets to make them into digital patterns to make rough first samples, actual samples. And that was another really cool unlock for using Gravity Sketch. Oops, sorry. And for me, so far in this journey, learning and using and teaching Gravity Sketch for me is the biggest thing I've learned about this technology in VR is that it's helped me connect to what I've learned from my traditional training at Parsons School of Design, illustrating, draping, pattern making, and creating with my hands, so to speak. It really has helped me bring back the joy to designing clothing and now fully utilizing the power of technology while reigniting and sustaining the passion for why I have been designing in this industry for 25 years. So that's my little bit of kind of a journey of how I've really grounded to tradition, and you really utilize the technology to really upskill myself, share, communicate. Um, and excite, and again, keep the joy in designing in these current days.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jeff. I mean, that has been it's been great to see your journey. I love when you talked about having your first piece of technology, which was your scanner.
Yeah, right.
It just
Uh,
brought me back as well. I was like, man, for me that was also a mind blowing one. So
it was.
yeah,
Yeah, it really, really helped bring this technology really does help bring our ideas to life even more, and you know help us communicate even clearer and excite around that.
yeah, exactly. And it's how you look at it, and that's what I love about like talking about these sort of things with you is because you always put it into a your perspective is coming from like I'm just not going to try to convert myself into a technological like crazy futuristic person. No, 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 it's just like another tool, right? Like it's just this one other tool that is sort of doing something similar to what I already do, but it's elevating it or just augmenting it, right? So you
Yes,
talk a lot about draping, so basically like using the same sort of behavior as you use when you are like in the physical space with fabrics and with your mannequins. You also talk a lot about the way that you express yourself in terms of the tools and how you do things inside of Gravity Sketch, very similar to how you do things in Illustrator, for example. So just you try to kind of like connect everything, which I think some people might have a hard time doing, right? Like we see this piece of like these things that we have to put in our faces and in our heads and like wear these two controllers, and we sometimes feel a little bit scared about that. But in reality it's just like it's just another way to continue doing what you're doing but helping you out to augment it.
absolutely. It's been real fun, and kind of you mentioned, like all of us. I mean, we are makers, and we will have a tool. We will be presented with a tool, and we're like, okay, we can use it this way, and oh, you know what? There's always going to be other unlocks. Oh, I figured out how to use it this way and this way. And that's the exciting thing about this journey of every single digital tool. It's not just the first step, yes, is to learn the initial usage, and the unlock is when you find other usages or other pathways that you can create with these tools.
Yeah, 100%. And so, what would you actually tell someone? Because apparel is one of the it's not a one of the kind of like design routes that people would like, people doing apparel design would not normally look at these sort of technologies or would not normally open up to technology that easily, right? Because like the love and the passion for like just draping and like doing things physically and like really understanding the fabric and how it's going to behave and so on, like there's something quite specific about that, right? So what would you actually tell someone that was just like very hesitant on jumping into new technologies to start, like especially 3D technologies, all the ones that are starting to appear and be available for everyone? What would you actually tell them to get them excited about it, to get them to open up to at least exploring?
Yes, absolutely. It's the maker's digital tool. It's literally. I love your hand gestures. This is fabric. And when we're in VR and we have the controllers in our hands and we have our grab buttons, we're figuratively or digitally grabbing fabric and pulling it around and up and over, the shoulders of the mannequin. We're figuratively pinning the center fronts or the center backs and taking our controllers, pulling the material, around the bodice, or around the high hip, and it's you nailed it right on the head, Danielle. Is this movement? It's the movements that also keep us grounded, in this digital realm, and grabbing fabric and pulling it over. Just it's a different medium, and we're still grounded to physically pulling something around over a mannequin. We're both doing this. And that's fabric. So I think it is kind of our talk about is tradition in technology. Is it's how technology has helped us only magnify what we do traditionally. And again, we're doing this again. This is fabric. This is the motion of that. So, yeah, that's how I would explain to somebody that it's the context or the gap isn't as big as you would think, between draping in real life versus draping digitally.
So if what are the advantages of you draping? I mean, I'm using draping as an example, but like in general, like of you designing in this way. Like is there anything that you've been able to achieve that you were not being able to achieve before, now that you have this medium to work with?
Absolutely. It's kind of what some of the other designers have been talking about in the previous sessions. Speed. We have the mirror. Whatever you do on the left side or the wearer's right side happens on the other side. So it is what I mentioned, instant gratification. You can be able to work out an idea either by surfacing or draping or by just wireframing, and you'll automatically be able to see everything in full through that 360. Yeah, so you don't have to concentrate on making sure the front view aligns with the side view aligns with the back view. Rather, you can already draw it once and already kind of back up or put it into a pass-through mode and put it on your desk and look around at your design. Or you can kind of stand away and push both buttons and put it into full size and walk around your idea, whether it's a wireframe or whether it's a full surfaced drawing. So speed is one of the true benefits, and also clarity. The clarity and validation of your ideas as well. You can do a lot of hand drawings. You can those are kind of almost like theories, until you can take that theory, bring it into Gravity Sketch, or draw that theory in Gravity Sketch. You can validate that idea. Like, oh, that does work up, and especially in apparel. For apparel, when you're doing something up and under, let's say, the underarm or hard to reach regions, in the bottoms, um, you have to draw front view, kind of back view, but you still can't really visualize it. What you get that underneath, like under the crotch area, for instance, if you're building an interesting gusseting or underarm or something that's hard to see, you can do that in 3D, and then, like, okay, that didn't work, move on. Or sick. All right, let's do this. Let's go with this design. Let's go with this idea. So
Yeah, or
yeah,
maybe
visualization, speed.
it's giving you kind of like even some other ideas, right? Because you're like now seeing it differently, from a different
Yes.
perspective, from a different, maybe in a different size, right? Like you might be just a very, very small person looking at it, like,
Oh,
yeah.
I love with Gravity Sketch zooming in 1,000%, and really getting into those details and everything. And then, obviously those little details always add up to obviously the big picture. So yeah, absolutely.
And so we have a lot of questions from the audience. There's some repeated ones, so like I think this is an important topic to touch on. How do you convert your Gravity sketches to flats, to flat patterns?
Absolutely. So what we do is there is a way that we do it, when we say we do the line drawing, and then we fill in the line drawing with a static surface. We call it static surfacing. So we have two ways of surfacing: static and dynamic. Static surface is when you're filling. I'm just going to use a circle as a maybe that's a bad example. So anyway, static surfacing is when we're filling in the wireframe, the front of a t-shirt, for instance, without any folds or material characteristics. So no folds or anything. It's just a flat surface that is bent around the body very neatly. So what we can do is we would do that all over. Say for a t-shirt, for instance, we have set and sleeve, we have a front, back collar, and we draw around the body without any of the folding or creasing characteristics, we can export that. And then we would UV unwrap that in, say, for instance, a blender. And then we would take that into an Illustrator and then kind of redraw some of the lines after we export from Blender into DXF. And then we can take that and then kind of make some of those adjustments and adjustments to the kind of the measurements. We can then export that out into a pattern software.
Nice. All right. Do you still use Clo 3D or skip directly to Gravity Sketch?
I use Gravity Sketch for all ideation. And again, just for the reasons why what you and I, Daniela, were talking about: speed, clarification. A lot easier to go around, have the model or mannequin draw your ideas, regardless if it's doing all surfacing or wireframe. You can already see the volume already coming into life, and then move on, to the next iteration. So iterations is so much more faster than Clo.
There's another question. The blend of tech and craft is really amazing. Does your use of emerging tech help you spend more time crafting? Where does the physical sampling come into your process?
Okay, I'm kind of getting that question. So how does the digital affect or support my physical crafting? Is that how we were reading that question?
Yeah, so the blend of tech and craft is really amazing. Does your use of emerging tech help you spend more time crafting? As in, like, you're now being able to produce more ideas. So does that help you kind of like go deeper into your craft because you're producing more and more ideas, being able to express them quicker?
It actually does. It really does, and it is because of the physical UI. It keeps me moving. It keeps you're not just focusing on what you're seeing on the screen. You're still involving your movements. You're still involving. So that helps as well. So and it creates almost like a seamless experience. You're creating like this in VR, and you go over to your table where your fabric actually is, and you're still moving. So it is a flow state. It keeps that flow state going from digital into physical and physical into digital.
That leads perfectly to the next, like the second half of this question, which is, where does the physical sampling come into your process?
How does the physical sampling come into my...
Where does the physical sampling, like, you talk about now being able to do a lot of the physical things that you were doing before, like you were doing things before physically, and now you do a lot of these things digitally. When does the physicality come into play? When do you start sampling?
Oh, shoot. It goes hand in hand. It honestly goes hand in hand. It allows me to push out a lot of ideas, right away in Gravity Sketch, and then it allows me to really feel confident, gives me more confidence actually in my physical sample making process. So there's not really a stage on when exactly, okay, 1 week, 2 week, or after, like, say, a design review one, then I'm going to go to physical, so yeah, I think it goes hand in hand. And when I'm ready to start making another physical sample. So bottom line, the point is it's given me more confidence to make that physical sample because the idea is already worked out even more. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think it does. All right. I'm just looking at, I don't want to miss any questions. All right, good. Guys, keep them coming. There's one here about are the big fashion houses in Paris using any of these tools? Some.
I hope in the near future. But you know what? The interesting thing is I envision Um, I envision movement when I'm thinking of big fashion houses and couture, and I envision all of this movement. Speaking of like you and I doing this draping, I still do that. Anyway, yeah, I envision movement, and I would really be, and I will be looking forward to the fashion houses in Paris, or around the world to get their hands on our tool.
Yeah, definitely. Some are starting to do it already. There's one question, a very practical question. What was the template you were using for draping in Gravity Sketch?
The template for draping. If I can think, I have two things, maybe two contexts. The template for draping one is the default mannequin that we have in Gravity Sketch in our prefab, and the other template might be the one. Maybe if anybody has seen two of the videos called Muslin, that I've deployed it through our playlist on YouTube, and that is something that I made myself. And the template is, if you see that, the template actually does totally look like how we would prepare a dress form, with the landmark marks of collar or neckline, shoulder, armhole, bust line, waistline, true side seams. So that's what I'm thinking. So default prefab, and then the second one is made off of that default, but it's been taped with landmark lines that we use in real life or in physical draping on dress forms.
Nice. All right, this one is quite an interesting one. So, what do you think the future of pattern making might be, or patterns needed at all in the future?
That's an awesome question. I love it. Shoot. Well, okay. First thing I think of when the last part of your question was patterns at all, and then I'll automatically say, go directly towards flat knit machines, seamless. There's no patterns really needed in that, except for when we're really drawing the graphics and what represents certain functionalities, where we're going to place the yarns, where we're going to place the structures. As far as pattern making in the future, I was reading this article on LinkedIn that AI is starting to decipher seam lines in photographs. So imagine if we draw a drawing in Gravity Sketch, and there is an AI that can translate that. As we all know, and what we've already been talking about, and what we are seeing in the media, that it's AI is so fast. The technology is going like that fast. So um, yeah, it's a very broad. It's a very broad question, a very exciting and curious question. I think it's kind of wide open. Um, so I would love to see pattern making, you know, partially, interpreted, and maybe initially make initial samples be done by AI. Then we can actually take it and adjust. Um, Maybe there's going to be some, plugins or synergies between Gravity Sketch, that is a creation and ideation tool, and a technical tool. So there might be a very strong, very clear pipeline between what Gravity Sketch is as an ideation and communication tool to that. There might be a couple. I think there will be and can be a few different avenues of Gravity Sketch to technical.
Yeah, that's an exciting future, I think. Um,
Absolutely.
I love this question because so Angela is asking this question, and she's in a way just kind of like really kind of like putting herself in thinking like physical and digital. And so her question is, are you just making the initial mock-up in muslin in Gravity Sketch, and then when you want to see it in other fabrics, taking it into clo to continue? Like, she's just kind of like making that comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. You can export the model. You can also export the Gravity Sketch model into um, other rendering softwares, Keyshots, your your blenders, your substances, or no, your substance to continue your rendering. Um, but yeah, there's a few different possibilities and different pathways you can take the GS assets to create more in-depth textures and everything like that.
Yeah. And there's so many other software you can use. Um, can you give us an idea on how long, and this is going to be the last question, so heads up. Can you give us an idea of how long a designer goes from traditional development to digital, i.e., using headsets, working in digital space? So, like, how is that, like, that jump into, like, going from very physical to digital?
The way, I mean, the way that we teach Gravity Sketch is, is really grounding the designer and keeping the designer within, the conventional, and showing that there is a really pretty small gap between traditional, conventional, and Gravity Sketch, or traditional, or digital. But if putting a number to it, you can learn this tool in about, I would say about really focusing about I would say 12 weeks, to be really, to feel really confident, even less than that, depending on how much time that you put into it. There's some really awesome discoveries in the tool, like simple things of grabbing and pulling an edge, and there's going to be just a little bit of learnings, around, grabbing and pushing a button at the same time. But again, it's a lot of just this. So yeah, if I can be exact, it could be 12 weeks. You can be a very strong Gravity Sketch apparel designer. And again, the cool thing about this is GS has helped put 3D into almost every designer's hands. It's not hotkeys or a lot of things to memorize. Um, it's been a very physical UI. It is a very physical UI that will, again, keep that gap really super close between digital and physical.
Nice. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your story, for sharing with us your workflow. And yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
being at the round.